Well, welcome back to Core Motivations Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Connolly. I'm a certified Enneagram coach and a Symbis marriage coach. Perhaps this is your first time joining us. I just want to say welcome to you. We are so happy you found us. And for those returning, we really appreciate getting to spend time with you week after week, growing and learning together. So thanks for being here. Wanted to ask for your help. When you follow the show, it gets added to your library and you get notified every time a new episode is available for, of course, your listening pleasure. You see, the more followers like yourself, the more likely others can find us and join the journey. So please follow the show on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really helps. So we have taken a few steps into the new year. How's everyone doing so far? Are you a New Year's resolutions kind of person? Or do you call it something else? This year, for us, my husband and I, we started to really look at the things from last year and wanted to be more purposeful with our life and how we operate in it and the way we live. Truth is, we're not getting any younger. And we want to take every opportunity and make it something that is meaningful. So we spent time, and of course, it is a work in progress, to write down and discuss the things that we want to do, need to do, or would like to do differently. And we're going to go back and review what we have written down. And as we figure out what fits for our life today, we will, move things around and really hone in and focus on all those things. So that's kind of, if you want to call it a New Year's resolution, then I guess it is, but it's just kind of our process as we enter into a new year. So last week, I shared that we'll chat about many different things, all while talking about the Enneagram. Okay, well, let's get into it. This week's hot topic for me, and hopefully for you as well, is I want to talk about AI and how we experience it in our daily lives. There are some pretty mixed feelings and perspectives about what it does and how it either adds or deletes from our daily lives. So, what is AI? AI meaning artificial intelligence. ChatGPT is the newest form, and they're mostly called LLMs or open source. So, although it has been research in the making since 1950s, it was invented and named at a gathering in 1956. But before we really experienced it, or before many of us knew what we were using, these things that operated in different forms of AI, we heard it from movies. That's when I became most aware of it. Like that movie, and maybe this is before your time, War Games in 1983, where that iconic supercomputer with its phrase, "Shall we play a game?" And of course, there was robots in the Jetsons way before its time, maybe even a little prophetic. Other movies like Blade Runner and so many other things on the screen. Are there other ways in which you notice AI as part of your world? There are, of course, the single function AI that helps you with routine tasks and digital assistants, or an auto series of steps that can also analyze and give recommendations. I think we can honestly say that in some way it is harming, not helping. I think about predictive texting. Have you ever tried to type something and it spells something profane? And before you can reread it, you've already sent it. And perhaps you sent it to the wrong person. I don't know, like your boss or just somebody that was not supposed to read that. I always say that I've been Siri hijacked again. The thousands or tens of thousands of jobs that are either becoming obsolete or are altering the way we do our daily lives and interact with our world is astronomical. One study said this about jobs in the coming years, that the World Economic Forum forecasts a net loss of 14 million jobs by 2027, with 83 million lost. That's a lot. I should say that this is also the same study that showed the projections of jobs being transformed. And so, in essence, it will create upwards of 69 million jobs back. I don't know about that. Makes you kind of think for a minute. Tech seems to be seeing this happen at a very high rate. Recently I took an Uber, and as I got to know my driver, it turns out she was, well, dare I say, a victim of the impact from AI job takeover. See, she worked in a bank and was phased out because they said her job was redundant. They had AI to do it. She had been there for over 15 years. I'm not saying it isn't useful, but at times it feels sneaky and crafty and a path to remove that touch that only people can give. I want to play a conversation that a pastor had with ChatGPT. Give it a listen.
I asked ChatGPT, if you were the devil, and maybe you are, if you were the devil, what would you do? And the answer that came back at me shook me in my shoes. I wouldn't waste my time trying to get you to worship me. No, I'd just convince you not to worship God at all. I'd tell you truth is relative. Your truth, my truth, until nobody knows which way is up. I'd whisper, as long as you're happy, it's right. I'd keep you busy. Too busy for prayer, too busy for church, too busy for crew. I'll put that one in. Too busy to ask eternal questions. I'd fill your hands with a phone so you'd never have time to fold them in prayer. I'd break families, get fathers absent, marriages bitter, and kids confused. If I can fracture the home, I can fracture the future. I divide the church, petty arguments, comparison, offense, celebrity culture. If I can get Christians fighting each other, they'll never fight me. I'd desensitize you. I'd glamorize sin in movies, normalize it in music, laugh at it in comedy, and celebrate it in culture until what once shocked you now entertains you. I'd attack your identity. I'd make you question who you are, where you belong, and whether you matter. I'd whisper shame so loud you can't hear God's voice of love. And through it all, I wouldn't even try to prove I exist. My greatest trick is to convince you I'm not real. Because if you don't believe I'm real, you'll never resist.
Now, this interaction was in response to understanding how temptation works. And in many ways, the question was answered pretty accurately. As I'm thinking about I can't imagine my favorite coffee place being run by AI. It's because of the people and the coffee, of course, that I go. And here's another example. Recently, as in this week, I went on what I thought was an official site to register my business. And wouldn't you know it, it wasn't. And with that, we're dealing with a fraud issue. Welcome to 2026. AI is not necessarily the culprit, but it is the powerful tool that people use for malicious acts. Wouldn't you say? So I read an article about a new study from MIT's Media Lab, and they talked about 3 different groups of 18 to 39-year-olds to have them write an SAT essay using OpenAI's ChatGPT, Google search engine, or nothing at all. So each group was assigned those different forms of research. So one group had ChatGPT as a resource, another group had Google search engine as a resource, and then other people had nothing at all, or just, what was in their mind. And what it showed was that the group that used ChatGPT, what it did was it created um, the lowest brain engagement, consistently underperformed at neural linguistic and behavioral level. And it further supported that it causes a growing challenge of the ability for critical thinking, creativity, and problem solving. So, in other ways that AI has been inserted into our lives are those struggling with loneliness, using AI as a companion. I have to admit, when I am looking for some sort of conversation and I'm alone in the house, I ask a question to Alexa. Well, we call her Ziggy, and we have an almost 10-minute conversation about something. The last one was about the good and bad attributes of having cats. But people use AI companions, AI for avatars, digital assistants, and general chatbots. We need to remember we are social beings and need actual human contact. Center for Universal Education says this: relationships are not luxury, they're biology. So, how do we live our lives side by side with AI? Well, I asked ChatGPT how to live in a world that uses ChatGPT. And here's the response: leverage AI as a tool and assistant boost to productivity, to automate routine tasks, enhance learning as a infinite patient tutor, to brainstorm and ideate, using it as a sounding board. That AI can be used to develop critical human centric skills, cultivate critical thinking by fact checking, apply humans' judgment to AI, which generates content, and of course, build reflection. It breaks prioritized emotions, as in the world needs more heart human and humanity nurture. AI is excellent synthesizing data, but struggles with true original creation and adaptability of the pace of change. And it's rapid as it cultivates an ability to unlearn old methods and adapt it is the key to thriving. Okay, wow, 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 wow. Just wow. I don't really have an opinion. ChatGPT also said establish healthy boundaries and practices to protect privacy. Now, remember, this is how we live side by side with ChatGPT. So, if we establish boundaries and practices to protect privacy, do not input confidential personal data that we seek experiences over screens, and ensure you are engaging with real world that bring you joy, align with values, using AI to help clarify your priorities and live a life with your personal values. Huh. And finally, by integrating ChatGPT thoughtfully and focusing on the skill that makes us uniquely human, you can live a fulfilling and successful life in an AI driven world. The theme presented amongst all AI knowing folks is that AI is not taking over and statistics are wrong, that we should see it as human and AI working together. Now, this to me remains to be seen. But just to give you another insight and experience of how ChatGPT works, I want to introduce our first guest, ChatGPT. I conducted a typing session with Chat, last name GBT, and this is how it went. Here, give a listen. Okay, well, welcome to your typing session. I'm going to read a couple of Enneagram types There'll be 3 of them, and then answer which one sounds most like you. Are you ready?
Absolutely, I'm ready. Go ahead and share those types, and I'll do my best to respond authentically from that perspective.
Okay. There is a lot of information, so let me get through all of that before you go ahead and respond. Is that okay?
Absolutely, that's totally fine. Take your time, and I'll be here and ready whenever you're set. Just let me know when you're ready for me to jump in.
Okay, well, let's get started. First, I want to say welcome so much to this time. I'm looking forward to spending time getting to know you a little bit better.
Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to it as well. I'm excited to dive in and explore everything with you.
Okay, well, here we go. I'm going to read a few types to you, and I've kind of narrowed it down because of the results from your assessment that you did. And so the 3 big types that were on there was a type 3, a type 5, and a type 7. So I'm going to go ahead and just read a little bit about each of those and see where you line up in that. So let's start with type 3. They are the successful achiever. They are known as efficient, accomplished, motivating, driven, and image conscious. And so their core motivation, starting with core fear, is the fear of being worthless, a failure, incapable, unimpressive, unsuccessful, insufficient, and exposed, where their core desire is to feel valuable, worthwhile without performing. And their core weakness, deceit, where they believe that they are the only image that they present to others. Their core longing is to be loved simply for being themselves. So let's look at type 5, which is known as the investigative thinker. And the key attributes is that they're perceptive, insightful, intelligent, detached, and isolated. And their core fear is the fear of obligation, annihilation, emptiness, incompetence, being ignorant, overwhelmed, and dependent, and even invaded, where their desire is to be capable and competent. Core weakness is something called avarice, which they feel that they lack inner resources and that too much interaction with others will lead to depletion. This leads to withholding themselves from contact with the world and minimizing their need. Core longing is that your needs are not a problem. And so then let's look at type 7. And sevens are known as the entertaining optimists. So, a little bit more about them is that they're playful, excitable, versatile, scattered, and an escapist. Their core fear is being incompetent, inferior, limited, bored, trapped in emotion, pain, sadness, disappointment, criticism, or missing out on something. Desire is to be fully satisfied and content with a core weakness of struggling with gluttony. To overcome feelings of inner emptiness, they pursue a variety of positive, stimulating ideas and activities, but they never really feel that they have enough. Truly, their core longing is knowing that they will be taken care of. So, out of those 3, which one do you resonate with the most?
That's such a great overview. For me, I definitely feel the strongest connection with type 5. The focus on intellectual pursuits, the need for personal space, and that feeling of depletion from too much social interaction really resonate with me. Type 3 and type 7 also have their aspects that I can relate to, but type 5 really feels like the closest match.
Good, good. Okay. Well, let's keep moving forward. So, I have another series of questions that fall under those 3 types. Um, So I'm going to read those again. It's type 3, type 5, and type 7. And there's specific questions for those types. So let's get started with that. Type 3, here's the questions. Do you place a high value on success, recognition, and achieving your goals? Or is your self worth sometimes tied to your accomplishments and success? Or do you adapt your image to meet others' expectation? Do you relate to any of that?
Absolutely. I can see how these questions relate to type 3. For me, I do value success and achieving goals, but I wouldn't say my self worth is primarily tied to them. I also don't tend to adapt my image just to meet others' expectations. So while I can relate to some of those elements, they don't quite capture the core of how I identify. But I'm definitely happy to dive deeper and explore further.
Yeah, so let's look at the type 5, which is kind of where you're headed and leaning. So I have 3 questions specifically about type 5 to see if maybe that helps you identify more of which Enneagram type you are. So just a reminder, type 5, they're the investigative thinker. So here's 3 questions to maybe identify a little bit more. Are you really an Enneagram type 5? So here's the questions. Do you have a strong desire to observe, analyze, understand, and know everything? Do you value your privacy and independence? And do you feel drained by too much social interaction?
Absolutely. Those questions really resonate with me. I do have that strong desire to observe, analyze, and understand things deeply. Privacy and independence are definitely important to me. And I do find that too much social interaction can be draining. All of that lines up really well with the type 5 trait. So I definitely feel more confident in that identification.
Awesome. Okay, well, just to rule out one of the other types, let's look at type 7. And I have some specific questions about a type 7. And just a reminder the type 7, they're the entertaining optimist. So here's the 3 questions for that. Do you seek new and exciting experiences to avoid boredom? Are you optimistic and future oriented? Do you struggle with staying focused on one thing for long periods? And do you tend to reframe negative situations and painful emotions to stay positive and optimistic?
Those are great questions. For me, I definitely value depth and focus more than constantly seeking new experiences. I'm not as future oriented or optimistic in that typical type 7 way. And I do tend to enjoy more stability and depth rather than constant novelty. Also, I'm more likely to process negative emotions rather than reframe them quickly. So those questions help reinforce that type 7 isn't quite the best fit for me.
Okay, well, I think we're leaning heavily towards type 5. So, keeping that in mind, we're going to look at something called triads. So, there's a feelings triad, a head, and a gut. And type 5s fit in what's called the head triad. So they respond to the world from a place of thinking. So, that being said, I'm going to read 3 from the head triad, which are the 5, 6, and 7 types. And you tell me which one fits more with you. So, their emotional struggle is anxiety and fear. And 5s deal with their fear by storing up information and putting up walls, where 6s turn their fear into overthinking and over preparing, where 7s try to avoid their fear by saying optimistic and stimulated because their common desire is safety. So, which one of those fit for you?
I'd say that definitely aligns with how I operate as a type 5. I do tend to deal with fear by gathering knowledge and creating those internal boundaries, kind of like putting up walls to protect myself. The type 6 tendency of overthinking and over preparing definitely resonates, but I find myself more in that introspective information gathering mode rather than seeking constant stimulation. So I'd say that the type 5 pattern fits.
Wonderful. I really feel like you are ironing it down or bringing it more into focus as a type 5. But just to continue in the process of typing, we have a couple more steps that I want to go through. And there's something called identifying your stance. So for a type 4, 5, and 9, they fall into the withdraw stance. So as a 5, which it seems that you are, and I'm not here to type you, but I just, based on the things that you shared, that's where we're starting to, or we are continuing to go, is in the withdrawn stance, they tend to move away from others and look inward to get their wants and needs met. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but their stance tends to be past oriented. Which one of those really fits for you?
That definitely aligns well with how I experience things. I find that I do tend to retreat inward into my intellectual world rather than turning to emotions or withdrawing into dissociation. I definitely have that tendency to process and find security through knowledge and reflection. And past oriented, inward focused stance definitely feels spot on for me. So I'd say the type 5 withdrawal stance fits very well.
That's wonderful. Okay, so there is something that's called a subtype of an Enneagram, and the subtype just helps refine a little bit more of what your Enneagram type is. So there's 3 of them, and there's one called self-preservation, there's one called social, and there's one called one-to-one. So I'm going to read both of those, and I would love for you to identify which one of those really you can identify with. Need to control their boundaries and privacy, and they are focused on having all the resources they need within their own castle. So they do not need to depend on anyone for their survival. So this subtype is the least expressive and most introverted. And so then the second one is what's called social, and they're also known as a totem. So these 5s are most extroverted and social to bring meaning to their life. They might share their knowledge, values, and ideals, but not their space, time, and resources. Okay, and then the final one, which we know to be one-to-one. So they're what's called confidence counter type. And this 5 can appear to be similar to a type 4 since they have more of a romantic side. They feel deeply, they have more obvious desires, and they suffer more internally. They desire for this relationship to be contained and private, and they have a vibrant inner life. So, out of those 3, the one-to-one, self-preservationist, and social, which one would you consider to be more like you?
I definitely feel more aligned with the self-preservation subtype. I really value my privacy and independence, and I tend to focus on creating that personal space and having my own resources. I do enjoy connecting with trusted individuals, but I definitely need that extra time to recharge. So the self-preservation subtype feels like the best fit for me out of those 3.
Oh, perfect. I think it's safe to say that you have found your Enneagram type. And if you're comfortable, I would love to say that you are an Enneagram 5. So, would you honestly be able to walk away saying that you feel comfortable saying, I am an Enneagram type 5?
Yes, absolutely. I feel pretty confident that type 5 fits best based on everything we've discussed. I definitely resonate with that core motivation, the withdrawal patterns, and the intellectual focus. It's been really insightful, and I'm comfortable with that identification.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate your time for going through this with me.
Of course, I really enjoyed it as well. It was a lot of fun exploring all of that with you. If you ever want to dive deeper or chat about anything else, just let me know.
Well, I do schedule other times to come together called coaching sessions. So if you're interested in a coaching session, let me know. I can send you my booking link.
That sounds fantastic. I really appreciate the offer, and I'd definitely be interested in exploring more coaching sessions in the future. Feel free to share your booking link whenever you'd like, and I'll definitely keep an eye out for it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time. I think that will end our typing session for now, and we'll be in touch.
Absolutely, that sounds great. Thank you so much for the engaging session, and I'm looking forward to staying in touch. Have a wonderful day, and we'll chat again soon.
I have to say, while this was fun and even humorous, it lacked some interactions that both me and the other person being typed, so if that was you and I spending time in a typing session, it would be much different, the experience. A bit more conversation that included experiences that you, as the person being typed, would have shared. And then that would have led to a response in a way that I would have to change the questions, and the experience would be wrapped around your responses. However, the outcome in many typing sessions is that the person walks away pretty confident of their Enneagram type. What made this interesting, the typing session with ChatGPT, is I was able to do a little pre typing based on the characteristics of ChatGPT and get us going in the right direction. And with a one-to-one, a personal typing session, you and I would also have some information from your assessment that you would take before doing a typing session. Those assessments help with some basic understanding of the person so I can help them determine their type. Always remembering I'm not deciding for you or for that person. I'm the guide. And you or that person would determine what fits because they know themselves better than I. As you heard in the typing session, we determined together, well, ChatGPT did, that their Enneagram type was a 5. So again, had that been a person having a typing session, that would be the hope, the goal, that they would walk away with a clear understanding or at least a direction of their Enneagram type. I would like to say a thank you to all the helpful research out there on AI, and a big thank you to ChatGPT for taking time out and joining me for a typing session. And one last quote to leave you with in regards to AI and us in our daily lives is the goal isn't replacement, it's elevation. What do you believe? AI, is it here to stay? Now, the legal stuff. This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute professional advice. The podcast is not a substitute for medical care. The materials, movies, videos, or books referred to in the podcast are only recommendations. Join me each week as we dive into all things Enneagram self-care ideas, self-love patterns and rhythms, share ideas from other reputable authors, doctors, and my favorite podcasters. A big thank you to you for being here with me today on Core Motivations Podcast. I know you've heard me say this many times before, but truly, thanks for supporting our podcast, as it just couldn't be done without all of you. So don't forget to press on the follow button if you haven't already. You can find me, Michelle, on Instagram at coremotivations_coach or through email, michelle@coremotivationscoach.com. So let me leave you with this. Until next time, and as always, I'm rooting for you.